Welcome to the Bird Podcast. I'm Shobha Narayan. We are now on Instagram at bird_podcast and YouTube at the Bird Podcast. Please subscribe to us and follow us if you think that you like this content. This is the last part of the How to Birdwatch series. And like I said, if you are an experienced bird watcher, don't even bother with this episode. Today, I will talk about birds in myth and legend, in which I loop in some history and fables and habitat. Birds are the stuff of myth and legend in almost every culture. Some of the most beautiful poetic images come from birds. My father was an English professor, and he loved the romantic poets like Keats, Shelley, Wordsworth. They lived in the Yorkshire moors in close proximity to nature and wrote lyrical poems about what they saw. For example, John Keats wrote Ode to a Nightingale, and that's a wonderful poem you should all read. I have read the poem, but I don't really understand it. What speaks to me is Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. The eagle is a singular image in Allama Iqbal's poetry. Iqbal reveres the eagle because it proudly disdains eating dead prey or anything other than what it has caught. As Mustansir Mir says in the website allamaiqbal.com, this description might apply to a hawk rather than an eagle, but as the website points out, Iqbal got a number of bird facts wrong, but for him, the eagle is a poetic construct. My favorite Urdu poem is a children's song sung by Nuzhat Abbas, Bulbul Ka Bacha, it's called. And I used to listen to this ad nauseum when I was a child years ago, and I was delighted to find it on YouTube recently. We will link to the poem. Sanskrit literature's most resonant bird image has to do with the Hamsa, which can separate milk and water that are mixed together in a bowl. The Hamsa is used as a reference in poetry for anyone that has discriminative judgment, because how can you suck up the milk and leave the water? Then there was a practice of divination based on the movement of birds that was common in most ancient cultures. When the crow caws, for example, you must have heard your grandparents say that there's going to be a visitor at home, unexpected guests, divining arrivals from the sound of a crow's caw. As K.N. Dave's magisterial book, Birds in Sanskrit Literature, says, superstition surrounds the magpie, not only in India, but also in Europe and England. My tangential interest with respect to bird watching has also been to delve into poetry that links to birds. And that could be your interest too, because bird watching will open you up to universes that, depending on your personality, you will not even know that you will be attracted to them. This ripple effect is a perk that comes from a deep dive into a hobby or passion. And clearly, I'm pushing bird watching as a passion. I have seen many beautiful birds: greater cuckoo, collared dove, pied kingfisher, hoopoes, racquet-tailed drongos, shrikes, hornbills, and rufous tree pies. There are nightjars, owlets, serpentine eagles, and several other birds. But I get the greatest pleasure in my own backyard. While it's good to tick off birds that I have seen, learning to see the birds in the trees around my building offer the pleasure of a deepening relationship. I know the moods of these birds in my neighborhood, if that makes sense. I know which trees they like to go to when it's cloudy and the ones that they favor when the first rays of the sun come out. I know the trees that the golden oriole only sits at. They were here a few months ago and now they're gone. I know the trees too because of these birds. Like I said, I know the silk cotton, the millingtonia, the cassia, and the bauhinia trees. Tamil has a nice word, tulir, for tender green, light green shoots. These are the silk cotton tree near my house has these tulirs that are coming out. It was bare and now it has little shoots coming out. Just today, I watched two black kites huddled in a tree and peck at their nest. They had built a nest in that dense foliage for many months, and I could barely see the nest through the foliage. This was where they laid their eggs and reared their young with a they were so dutiful in how they took care of coming back in the morning, sitting on the eggs, taking turns, mother and father. It was a privilege to watch. And now that the fledglings have hatched and gone, they are taking apart this nest with the same dutifulness that they built the nest with. So I find it very profoundly majestic and mystical that these birds will do that. Every now and then a songbird will come and sing. It has yellow undersides and green wings and a different colored head. And then I have to figure out what it was. Karnataka's state bird is a roller, which has a beautiful Kannada name called Neelakhanti. This bird, Coracias bengalensis, is also the state bird for Odisha, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh. West Bengal's state bird is a white-breasted kingfisher. Rajasthan's is the great Indian bustard. So in this way, birds introduce you to geography as well. They introduce you to seasons. Everyone says that bird watching requires patience. I don't think so. I think the pleasure of bird watching comes from the questions that you ask. You can watch a crow and try to figure out what it's thinking. Why is it cawing at that moment? Why is it walking? Why is it drinking water in that specific way? You can listen to calls and that a common miner makes so many calls, and you can try to figure out if there's a pattern. You can watch the birds come and go at trees and see if there's a pattern. So bird watching doesn't require patience. It just requires curiosity. What are the birds thinking? Can the calls predict something? Is the wind changing? Does that define when they take off and land? Bird watching for me is an engrossing and pleasurable hobby. It gives me great aesthetic joy to watch these most beautiful of God's creations. Then again, I see a butterfly and I think that's the most beautiful of God's creations as well. Oh, but there is a dragonfly right there with its transparent wings, and a honeybee that gives up its life for a colony. All of these species, all of these great creatures, great and small, are waiting to connect with us. So what are you waiting for? Just go out there and start watching birds. Thank you. Bird Podcast is produced by Ullas Anand and Echo Edu. I'm Shobha Narayan. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening.